George Russell's journey so far in F1 has been impressive, rising from a rookie with Williams to the most successful top team with Mercedes. In this video we will take a look at George Russell's F1 journey so far, so let's get into it. In October 2018, it was announced that Russell had signed a multi-year deal to drive for the Williams team, partnering Robert Kubica for the 2019 season. The Williams FW42 lacked pace and was the slowest car of the field. In most races, Kubica was Russell's only on-track competition. At the rain-affected German Grand Prix, Russell crossed the line in 13th place before being promoted to 11th after the Alfa Romeo drivers were penalized post-race for using driver aids. He narrowly missed out on scoring his maiden point in Formula One, having been overtaken by Kubica in the closing laps. The Brazilian Grand Prix provided one of the few opportunities of Russell's debut season to race other cars, where a late safety car allowed him to finish in 12th place, just 1.5 seconds behind a points scoring position. Russell ended the season in 20th place in the championship, the only driver not to score a point. Russell continued driving for Williams in 2020, partnered by former Formula 2 competitor Nicholas Latifi. Russell started the Styrian Grand Prix in 11th place after a wet qualifying session, beating his previous best qualifying position. Running wide into the gravel in the early laps effectively ended Russell's chances at points, and he finished 16th with both Williams drivers struggling for race pace. Russell crashed out of the Belgian Grand Prix after a stray wheel from Antonio Giovinazzi's car hit his Williams. At the Tuscan Grand Prix, Russell started 18th but ran in the points positions for most of the race, aided by a higher-than-normal attrition rate. He ran in 9th place before the second red flag period but experienced a poor restart, dropping back to 12th and last. Despite passing Romain Grosjean, he was ultimately unable to progress further and finished 11th. At the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Russell crashed out from 10th place while following the safety car, an incident he described as the biggest mistake of his career. Russell stood in for Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes for the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix, following a positive coronavirus test result for Hamilton. Russell qualified for second position on the front row for the race start, narrowly missing out on pole to teammate Valtteri Bottas by 26 milliseconds. Russell took early control from the race start and led most of the race, but with 20 laps remaining, Mercedes team mechanics fitted Bottas' front tires on Russell's car, causing him to have to re-pit on the next lap to correct the error. He then suffered a slow puncture 10 laps before the finish and was forced to pit again. Russell finished in 9th place and earned his first 3 World Championship points, 2 points for 9th and 1 for the fastest lap. Russell performed media duties for Mercedes at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, but returned to Williams in time for practice when Hamilton was declared fit to compete. Following Friday practice, Russell said returning to Williams for this event was a strange feeling, having competed in the faster Mercedes the week before. Russell qualified 18th and finished the race 15th. Russell was retained by Williams for the 2021 season alongside Nicholas Latifi. At the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, he collided with Valtteri Bottas after driving onto a wet patch and losing control of his car during an overtaking attempt, causing both cars to retire and prompting a red flag. Russell initially blamed the incident on Bottas, accusing him of trying to kill them both, but later retracted his claims and apologized to Bottas and his own Williams team. Russell ran in 15th place prior to the red flag at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, but failed to make the restart due to gearbox issues. He finished 12th at the French Grand Prix, ahead of 8 other drivers, later remarking that this was the best race he had ever had together with Williams. He qualified 11th at the Styrian Grand Prix, missing out on the third qualifying session, Q3, by 8 milliseconds. He was promoted to 10th place after Yuki Tsunoda received a grid penalty, his best grid position for Williams. During the race, Russell gained 2 positions in the opening laps but later entered the pits multiple times as his team attempted to resolve a reliability issue. He eventually retired from the race. Russell reached Q3 for the first time in a Williams car at the Austrian Grand Prix and started the race 8th, the team's highest grid position since 2017. He finished the race 11th, having been passed by Fernando Alonso in the closing laps. Russell reached Q3 again at the British Grand Prix, but was issued with a grid penalty for colliding with Carlos Sainz Jr. in the sprint qualifying session. He finished the race 12th. At the Hungarian Grand Prix, Russell came from 17th on the grid to finish a career-best 8th, after Sebastian Vettel's disqualification, earning his first points for Williams. In the rain-affected Belgian Grand Prix qualifying session, Russell qualified in second place behind Max Verstappen. This marked the first front-row start for Williams since the 2017 Italian Grand Prix. The race was delayed by wet weather and ultimately only 2 laps were completed, both under safety car conditions. This allowed Russell to maintain his grid position and claim his first Formula One podium finish. At the 2021 Italian Grand Prix, Russell finished 9th, scoring an additional 2 points. At the Russian Grand Prix, Russell qualified in 3rd in mixed conditions, before finishing the race in 10th. This would be his final points finish of the year. Russell's season ended with 2 retirements. He was eliminated from the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix after a collision with Nikita Mazepin and suffered gearbox issues at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. He placed 15th in the Drivers' Championship, scoring 16 of his team's 23 points. Russell joined Mercedes in 2022, replacing Valtteri Bottas and joining 7-time World Drivers' Champion Lewis Hamilton. In his first race as a full-time race driver for Mercedes, Russell finished 4th. In his 63rd start, the 2022 Australian Grand Prix, after starting 6th on the grid, he achieved 3rd, his second podium. Russell was involved in a first-lap crash at the British Grand Prix involving several drivers. Having received a puncture, Russell jumped out of his car to check on Zhou Guanyu, whose car had gone over the tyre barrier and into the catch fencing, with the intention of rejoining the race once he had ascertained that Zhou was safe. However, his car was brought back to the pits by marshals, meaning he was not allowed to take the restart, having received outside assistance to return to the pit lane, even though he would have been able to return the car to the pits unaided. At the Hungarian Grand Prix, Russell took his maiden pole position in Formula One. This has been George Russell's journey so far, and we are excited to see what the future holds for the Brit Racer. Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments. See you in the next video.